of the day. We have our AFC Bournemouth versus Aston Villa for our match two of the semifinals to figure out who would be the relegation champion. So, Kels, what do you expect for this game?
Well, James, I expect a thrilling, entertaining game like we had in the last one. Just kidding. The last one was probably the worst game of football that anyone has ever seen in life. But I feel like we're going to get a better one here. We got AFC Bournemouth, exciting team, explosive offense. They got some players that can score. Callum Wilson, Joshua King, going up against Aston Villa, which had a great run to make it to the Premier League. So would hate to see them go back down, but two good teams. This should be a good one here.
Yeah, hopefully, again, like you said, it's a little bit more of a of a better game than the last one. But we're about to get kicked off here, so let's see what comes of it.
Can't wait to see who we get for announcers here. If it's going to be the beautiful Martin Tyler, or if we're going to get Derek Ray. A little less exciting. I feel like Martin Tyler's like the Keith Jackson of the EPL. Uh,
Well, you'll be happy to see that. Obviously, we have Martin Tyler and Alan Smith.
and me and you, James, we kind of took a liking to Bournemouth here this year a little bit. Is there a team that came from like the fourth division in English football and made it all the way up to the Premier League and have stayed in the league for a few years now and obviously in a relegation battle, but they've had a ton of injuries this year, and I think that's the main reason in real life that they're in this position. As you can see, they're two of the worst defensive teams as well this season. But um, yeah, I really think that if Bournemouth had had their full team all season long, that they wouldn't be in this position right now.
Yeah, I would definitely feel the same way, especially too, seemed like a little earlier in the season when they were in relegation, they were able to get themselves back out of it, but unfortunately did get right back in. So it's going to be a little tough for them, too, if they get relegated based off what has happened, if the Premier League has been stopped for good. Obviously, we have to see what happens with the coronavirus in England and everything, so that really puts into perspective of course, what can happen. But you do hope that there's a chance that they can get at least a few more games in, and then hopefully some teams that haven't had all the games, especially Aston Villa, can have at least one more chance to get all evened up with the other teams. And at that point, too, if they are still out and then everything, then at least they had their chance to have the same amount of games.
Yeah, that's right. Aston Villa, I think, has to play Chelsea in their. They played 28 games so far this year. Most of the rest of the league has played 29. So that's one thing that maybe shouldn't be going in their favor right now. They maybe shouldn't be in this game even, but I believe we've spoken to Premier League officials though, and the results here will count. This will be what happens. Who gets relegated will depend on this game.
Exactly. We totally talked to them, have a legitimate email, everything. So, and for the people who are asking what the hell is going on, of course, we didn't. Happy very late April Fools. So, well, it looks like we have a evenly started, but it looks like Aston now has had the chance to get some points or get into the attacking third. But it looks like this one is going to be a little bit more exciting than Norwich and Watford. So let's just hope that it stays that way and we don't have not a 0-0 draw at the end of the second half.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a low bar to clear, so I think this one already is looking more exciting, more attacking play as we're seeing. And I feel like in real life it would be like this too, because these two teams do like to get up and down the pitch. Maybe that's why these four teams are in this position, is because they're just so offensive minded and not really taking care of things on the defensive end.
Yes. So, well, right now it looks like Bournemouth, the home team, is home squad looking a little bit stronger, keeping well. Some nice little moves here by Smith. Hands it back off to Cook though. So it's very interesting to see if Bournemouth can pull off some magic here, get themselves out, and as that shot goes wide.
And one thing I would say about Bournemouth, I do think that they have one of the best managers in the Premier League. If you look at Eddie Howe, what he's been able to do getting this club up from, I believe it was the fourth division, and not only that, but they almost went bankrupt. They almost didn't even have a team A few, honestly, I believe it was less than 20 years ago when this happened in early 2000s. And so for them to even have a team is kind of remarkable. And then to be in this position is also remarkable as well. And Aston Villa, obviously a big club from years past. They kind of fell on hard times, got relegated. And now Dean Smith led them back up into the Premier League for this year. And pretty exciting for their fans to be here and would not want to be one and done. Certainly, I think the fans of them, they're such a big club. They want to be here consistently year after year.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be going in and out of championship to premier and back and forth. Definitely not really helpful, especially with getting a new fan base, which of course leads to financial, as we see an offside here in Aston Villa, clear offside. But it's all important to basically keep themselves and try to get some players. I know obviously they don't have the finances as the real big names like Man City and Liverpool, so obviously that puts a little bit into perspective about, it's all really if they can get the financial backing, but I do think that, they have a couple of players away from potentially being talented enough to at least stay in. They have obviously, I think, a very long way to go before they can be Premier League champion contenders, but you never know. Leicester City proved that.
You're right, and they do have one of the better young players in the league, in Jack Grealish for sure. And also, I think with them, they have the history, and they also have some famous fans. Fun fact: Tom Hanks is a big Aston Villa fan, and Prince Charles is also a big Aston Villa fan as
No,
well. He
and
was
we
there.
have a scoring chance, and a little wide.
Now my stream once again is a little bit behind here as I'm watching it secondhand a little bit. So I just
Yes.
actually saw that right now.
Yes, Samada with the wide shot. And just to
Huh.
remind everyone here, folks, that we are social distancing. Kels and I are in two totally different towns, so we are practicing the social distancing. Hope that you are as well. But getting back to the topic at hand, Kels, it looks like on the virtual game here that it looks like Aston Villa is the one that has a little bit of the possession in their favor.
Yeah, it looks like they've had the better chances so far. Can't say that I would disagree that if they played in real life that they would have plenty of chances. I was curious to see if Wesley was playing for them. Couldn't remember if he was injured or not. So I thought that he was the one that took the shot previously, but it wasn't him. So we'll see what happens. I think Bournemouth can be good on the counterattack here. We'll see if they can get something going.
Yep, and it looks like Aston now is getting their scoring, trying to get their scoring chance. Looks like we have a foul potential, but looks like it was weighed off. Oh, and a nice header that was saved.
Goalies coming up big here in these relegation battles in the
Yeah,
semifinals.
yep,
We
and
saw last game. Cruel was huge for Norwich, the Pau Gasol lookalike.
it is Paul Gasol. He got so bored that he retired from the NBA to come play some Premier League soccer. Oh, I'm sorry, football.
I
So,
couldn't blame him.
yeah, a little more money. By little, I mean a lot.
He probably could have done it. He could have been a goalie,
Yep,
probably 6'10",
yep,
the
this,
long wingspan.
yep. As Aston has a throw in.
And that was just blasted. Uh, I guess it was unlucky there that it went off the Bournemouth player, but
As we see here, that looks like Aston's pushing up a little further.
do love these Aston Villa jerseys for sure. Love that light blue with the maroon. Pretty solid look.
Yes, very solid look, and it looks like Bournemouth keeping it in the box. Ah, well played tackle there by Aston Villa.
I'm not gonna lie, James. You are a good 15 seconds ahead of me right now. It seems like, but let's
We'll
see.
just call you the replay proof.
Yeah, I can tell you what happened
Yes.
if there's something in question.
Oh, there was a surprise. There wasn't a foul there.
You
Is
know, an
Aston?
interesting. I'll go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say assist and as a throw in. I'm sorry, Bournemouth.
Interesting thing about Aston Villa, their coach is Dean Smith, obviously the legendary, same name as the legendary North Carolina coach. and wearing the Carolina blue here today.
Yes, sometimes it's funny how when you look for some coincidence in sports, how they exist.
They really do. There really are a lot of them. I have to say.
Yes, well, I have to say, even though again this is right now still uh, a draw at 0, and it looks like we're heading that way into halftime. It's still a little bit closer, more action-packed game, if you ask me. Doesn't seem like one team really has full control over possession of the other. So hopefully at that point, it's going to very soon lead into some points on the board.
I think you're right, and I did pick Bournemouth going into this game, but I think I picked Bournemouth to win. I don't know how either of these teams match up against Norwich City. Should be interesting to see in the championship here.
Yes,
But
it will be. Hopefully that one's more interesting, but it'll be. I think I enjoy these, but I definitely look forward to our sims of the remaining teams in Champions League, more
oh,
for the fact that they can at least score.
no doubt. And
Yes.
I
And we,
think if you are a soccer fan and you're longing for some soccer right here, this is quenching your thirst. I believe. I
yes,
do think that
exactly. And you don't have to wait 90 minutes. You don't have to watch 90 minutes. And you don't
that's
have to wait forever.
that's true.
All right, and we're going to halftime here with a tie at 0-0 yet again. So, what did you like from what you've seen so far, Kels, in this game?
Well, I have to say, it looked like both teams had more intensity than they had in the Watford Norwich game. I think I don't think someone told them that they were playing for their relegation lives in the last game, but these two teams look like they're on it. They look like they know this is Game 7. They got to get out there, and I feel like this is a high quality match right now.
Yes, I believe it's actually a lot better than it was what we saw in the first half of our first semifinal between Watford and Norwich. Quite a bit, I think, a little more evenly possessed game, not really a full bore who had more control. It did seem like at the first half of this half, it was slanting towards Aston Villa, but it seemed like Bournemouth picked up the pace and really figured out how to contain Aston Villa and at least get some chances of their own.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the things about this game is that we did this realistically as best we could here. As we talked about before, Aston Villa has only played 28 games this season. Bournemouth has played 29. So if Aston Villa were to win that game, it's against Chelsea. The next game, their 29th game, they would actually move out of the relegation zone. So they wouldn't even be in this position. But if the Premier League were to do a tournament like this, based off the standings right now, this game would be played at Bournemouth. So that is one of the interesting things about this game, I think. And maybe, could swing the match towards the cherries, I would say.
Yes, and breaking down what we see so far for this after the first half, Bournemouth has about 60% of the possession for the first half, so obviously it's a lot more as close to equal as the past game, where Norwich had, I believe, it's 67% possession, and right now too it looks like we're tied at shots at 2 apiece, but the big difference being that Aston Villa has one shot on target.
Yes, and we should note also that this is a computer simulation.
Yes.
No humans playing in this game, so I feel like the accuracy is better. If it were me and you playing out there, I feel like the pass rate would not be as high.
Yes, and full disclosure, folks, Kellis and I are actually on a team for co-op on FIFA. In the past couple of times we've played, we've had a ground-stopping one win. So when we keep saying that this is AI versus AI, this is why you see a little more action, a little more accuracy.
That's right. I don't think anyone wants to see us play, actually.
Yes, no. I mean, it's a good clinic for young children to watch how not to play soccer. So we provide some some PSA about the kids about don't be us. We provide some lessons. All right, so Kels, what do you expect to see in the second half here?
Well, I expect to see a very intense game here in the second half. I expect to see a lot of chances. I think teams will maybe take a few more chances. Maybe it could get cagey even towards the end. I'd like to see another bit of extra time. I really would. I'd like to see us go deep in extra time and have some exciting finish here.
All right, so we're about to kick off into the second half. Aston Villa will get possession first, and we're on our way to the second half. Let's see how this goes.
And one thing I did want to mention too was obviously with this tournament, Watford is the number one seed, or they were the number one seed, as they were taken out by the four seed Norwich City. So basically, we were playing 17 through 20 here in the Premier League, the final four teams at the bottom, and West Ham had the same number of points as Watford, but they escaped this tournament because they have a better goal differential. So if this were to really happen in real life, this might be what it looks like as the Premier League comes back after the coronavirus suspension. And that's kind of why that was the idea behind this, and that's kind of why we've been able to do this so far.
Yes, and one question I think that we haven't touched on here, Kellis, is I want to get your viewpoint. Obviously, with the season going, a couple weeks now of suspended action, what do you think that the best way for the Premier League to go? I'm thinking that I know the season's usually a little, they have a couple more games, but my point, depending on how long this goes, I think maybe 4 games max left for each team is the best way to go. So obviously the 4 teams that are down the amount of games, 28 compared to 29, I think they should get one at least 6 instead of 5, but try to get it even. But I don't think you can really go any further because, of course, if you try to complete the entire season, you're going to have a shorter off season, and then for the 2020-21 campaign, it's going to be, I think, a little difficult for players to rest.
Right. I think if you did, like you said, if you did do more games, you may not even have an off season, which would be really bizarre, just going right back into the next season. And it's really tough. I don't know if there is one good solution that can really be fair to everyone, because the main thing that you have to think about is that obviously if you don't play a full schedule, it's going to be unbalanced, as some of the teams at the bottom are going to have had tougher schedules than others, and are going to have played better teams. I know for a fact that Bournemouth had a very tough run going in, coming out of this. So I think for that reason it's unfair, and obviously there's a lot of financial things tied in with everything that's going on. Obviously, staying in the Premier League is a huge deal. So I think it's interesting, but that's why I think that a tournament like this in real life could be the solution, because you play it down and the winner moves on, and the rest of the teams are relegated, and then it's a little bit more fair.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very tricky. There's obviously we don't have the access to the full rule book and the everything that Premier League has for anything of this nature. But of course, the past couple of times that any professional league has stopped has been in wars and everything, and that's been more of a continental thing. But with what's been going on now, it's been a little bit obviously a lot more worldwide. So, I would love to see that some people have a little more of a chance, especially, again, the 4 teams who are behind, get at least their 1 game left. But at this point, you have to go with what the EPL has in their rule book and their guidelines.
Yeah, one of the other solutions that I would consider that may not be a perfect solution would be what one of the West Ham owners came up with, which is not relegating anybody from this season, but recognizing that Liverpool won the championship, recognizing the top 4 teams moving on to the Champions League, but not relegating anyone because of the schedule imbalance and how unfair that might be. Um, I think that might be a decent solution, and just have a Premier League next year with 23 teams instead of 20. But obviously that opens up a lot of issues with scheduling and TV deals and other things like that. So a lot of issues to be ironed out there for sure. But
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand the idea of trying to get it so that way no one gets relegated. But again, I think, like we said in the podcast previously, especially having an odd number of teams, that really creates a logistical issue because you can't really have, you're going to have at least one team who doesn't have the same number of games as the other teams, or you might have someone play against another team 3 times because that's the only way you can really do it. So I think it really all depends on how you can try to keep it where it's even a number of teams.
that's true. And you could potentially maybe just promote 2 from the championship instead of promoting 3, because normally that third spot would be a team that would have won the championship playoff. as the top two just go based on the regular season, and then 3 through 6 playing a playoff to be promoted. But I think that if you took that away, there may be even some legal questions as to, these teams believe that they had a chance to be promoted at the beginning of the season, and obviously for that not to happen, it's tough. But obviously, an unprecedented situation that everyone is facing here.
Yeah, definitely. And switching gears on to I think for the rest of the teams in the league at the table, obviously too, like we've said plenty of times, that Liverpool, you can pretty much say for a fact that they're the undisputed champions of this season. They have a 25-point lead. But I think let's focus on our two teams here, Kels. What do you think Tottenham has to do to have a chance to get up into Champions League again and potentially even win the Premier League title next season?
That's a great question. I think with them, everything just got stale towards the end of the year. I mean, if you look at them last year, they were a great team last year, and they played so well, obviously in the Champions League, getting to the Champions League final. And I just thought that things ran stale. I think that everyone was getting old. They had a couple windows where they didn't have any transfers. I think now with obviously Mourinho being there, I think they just need to have some time to gel and play together a little bit more. They need to have some of these guys that they brought in, the transfers, get a chance to play. I think Ndombele, Tanguy Ndombele hasn't been in Mourinho's good side so far. So I think I'd like to see him get more of a chance in that first team and get an opportunity. And obviously Stephen Baldwin or Bergwin, I should say, is a guy that deserves some more times. I think as these guys play together a little bit more, I think they're going to be a little bit better. I feel like the break for them is going to be good. Get some rest. They had a really long year last year. Get back and develop some more team chemistry, and I think they'll be better next year.
Yeah, and I definitely can see that, especially too. I think that they definitely have the talent. Oh, and as we have a, yellow card here on Nakaba
Oh,
on Aston Villa. Oh, yeah, that was a rough sliding tackle. But to get back to the point, Tottenham definitely has a talent. I think they just need to have them meld a little bit better, get a little more chemistry. They definitely have Harry Kane, who is arguably, I think, one of the best players from England. He had the most goals in the 2018 World Cup. Had a little bit of a heartbreak, obviously. So close to the champion, the World Cup final. Would have loved to see England versus France, but that's how we see it. Croatia pulled it off in the semifinal. So they have the talent, and I think they'll probably get a little bit closer to the top four next year.
yeah. One of the things with them too is just injuries. I mean, Harry Kane, unfortunately, he's one of the best players in the league, and certainly around Europe, but he just can't seem to stay healthy for a consistent period of time. I think they maybe need to kind of like they do in the NBA with load management. I think they need to rest him a little bit more, and also his son. He's another guy that just can't stay on the field, but those guys are immensely talented, and obviously if they could stay on the field a little bit more, I think Tottenham would have a much better chance. I think that's one of the main keys, actually, is just to be able to stay healthy.
Yeah, and actually, as you're saying, Son, the big interesting question too that just came of it before we look at Leicester is that he is actually going to be completing the required military training for South Korea
That's
during
right.
this break. So it's really interesting to see that if all of a sudden the season does come back, what are they going to do with him? Because of course, he's required by his country's law to serve at least some military time. So that's one thing you have to look at too. As it looks like we're going to be having yet again, folks, some extra time here as we have gone 92 minutes of nil-nil soccer.
Hard to believe that this has happened again, as it's 0-0 again, but you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Let's get some extra time. Maybe let's get a penalty shootout. This should be exciting here.
Yes, you would think that there would be some points in this game, but again, we're seeing why these teams are going towards relegation. It's been a rough go for both of them so far in this game. I'm sure that the real life counterparts are probably asking, "What on earth are you doing? for your virtual self. So just some quick statistics before you head in. Bournemouth 57% possession compared to 43 for Aston Villa. So Aston had a little bit more compared to the first half. And again, looks like it's still shot on goal or shot on target 1 versus 0 for Aston Villa. So not a lot of shots in the second half. In fact, Aston Villa got none, and Bournemouth had one more shot, but of course they didn't have any shot accuracy at 0.
Yeah, that is an amazing stat. Really, 0% shot accuracy. Only 3 shots, obviously, but that second half, that was almost as bad as Norwich City versus Watford, which you
Yeah.
can check out also on Roundball Daily's YouTube channel, by the way.
Yes, exactly. And we'll do a quick little plug here, too. Don't forget, folks, we do have Roundball Daily Podcast on Facebook as our page. We'll be posting a lot more different content on there, some polls and everything. Who knows, we can maybe come up with some new ideas for the live. And we also, of course, too, have our podcast. We are working to get onto Apple very soon. We are available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, and we do provide links on both RoundballDaily.com and the Facebook page. But to get to it, we now, of course, are going into yet again some extra time. Hopefully this time we can see a goal instead of going to shootout, because if you can recall, Kels, the shootout between Norwich and Watford was a little comical and how bad some of the misses were.
Yeah, that was like a high school shootout. I feel like if there was a high school soccer match, that's what you'd expect to see. I
Yep.
feel like how many actual goals were scored? I feel like there was like 3
It
or
was
4.
2-1.
2-1.
2-1 in a shootout.
That is
So,
pathetic.
Aston Villa with the tackle here to pick the interception. And seems like this one is going back to where it has been the past 90 minutes. A lot of nice passes and potential shots, but it seems like some careless interceptions or some poor crosses and everything, or some high follows.
Well, I feel like I'm going to take the positive route and say that this one is just cagey right now. I feel like both teams know what's on the line, and that's why we're getting such a defensive battle here.
Oh, and we have a goal! Aston Villa with the goal. It's onside. Beautiful header.
Incredible. And what a cross. Oh, wow.
Wow, that was a beauty. Oh, wow. Well, you know, folks, we have a goal that's onside. Oh,
That's
wow.
gonna be one of those. Of course, in the last game, Watford, we had a goal that was offside that you thought definitely should have been checked with VAR. But Connor Hurrihan, he scores the potential game winner here.
In the
That's going to be
95th minute.
Going to be one of the
Wow.
most famous goals in Aston Villa history here.
So do we have it where both road teams win?
Wow. That would be shocking. 95th minute.
Wow, 95th minute. It looks like Bournemouth is going to try to get themselves back and get this all tied up. Oh, that was not a very good cross there. Very well played by the keeper. And the best way to get a corner is kick the ball right off your opponent's face, as we saw there. As we're replaying the goal there.
Wow. Did that go right off his face?
And we have our first corner of the game.
Wow, what a goal. I mean, seriously. Hurrihan, just a terrific job. The Irishman, I believe, for Aston Villa. I'm taking Villa in the final if they make it.
Yes, I definitely think that. I mean, you couldn't have drawn that cross any better.
They're really playing like they did in FIFA 18 when I did a dynasty with them. They're really just playing extremely well.
There you go. They had your coaching direction.
That's right.
As we see here, that Aston looking like they're trying to get upfield. Very nice little pass there. look like they're trying to play the clock here a little bit. Can't blame them. 1 goal lead. You want to hold it as best as you can.
Now they do have the second half of extra time that they're going to have to get through too, but
At this point, though, you want to try to save up your energy for that last 15. We do have additional 2 minutes for this first frame of the extra time.
I have to say in soccer, I've never really agreed with the two halves of extra time. I feel like it kind of slows the play down, and with scoring chances obviously being somewhat few and far between in some matches, I feel like they should just let there be a free-flowing period of extra time with no stoppages. But
I think I can understand that as a casual fan who's becoming a little bit more hardcore soccer. But I think, too, the big thing is that you have to put in mind that a lot of these players are played 90 straight minutes. Well, not, well, of course, the halftime, but, they've been running around for 90 minutes. So give them a little breather, because it really is hard to play 2 hours of soccer, because really it's a lot of moving, and it's, the field isn't short.
that's true. It is, no question. But I've seen it where you have the break in extra time and things kind of slow down a little bit. And I feel like it could be an advantage for one team. Obviously, an advantage for the team that took the lead in the first half. But I don't know. It's an interesting debate, I think, for sure.
Yes, that's one that I think we can carry on into the end of time. But as we get started here on the second frame of the extra time, see if Aston Villa can even score an extra goal and pretty much cement their way into the final against Norwich, or can Bournemouth tie it up and force it into penalty kicks?
Man, I would love to see a great finish here and some penalty kicks, but we'll see what happens.
Hurahan's goal is the difference between this game. See if that holds up. But it looks like Bournemouth is going to be a little more aggressive. I would expect them to be. You only have only so many minutes left before this game is over. So we got a little cross here. Looks like that failed. Looks like we have stays with Bournemouth. Oh. Nope, I'm sorry. That's a goal kick. I looked at the flag incorrectly.
Wow. Controversial call here. No question about it. Big call in the 110th minute.
As we see here, that looks like Bournemouth was able to break up any potential attack. As you can hear in the fans here, they're building it up, trying to get them to get a little further up. With about 7 minutes to go before we see how much extra time is available. But Bournemouth running out of time.
Everyone in the building knows what's at stake. At least I hope. It's possible they think it's just a friendly here, but
there's no such thing as friendly.
It's like Dayton versus Irola here.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Which was one of the greatest happy birthdays I've seen on Facebook in a while, by the way. I thought that was classic.
Yeah, that was classic.
Well, if Bournemouth wants to tie this, they've got to get something. They've got to get a stop, and they've got to push up.
Well, that last trip obviously went begging. They've gotten it into a good position here in the second frame of extra time, but they really have to get the ball back here quickly.
As we approach the 120th minute.
Just some slick moves by Grealish.
Yep, and we only have 2 minutes of additional time, so Bournemouth needs to push this up and push it up fast. So they try to, but very well defended by Aston.
You know, I feel like they're playing like it's like a game in November here. They really need to get going. Like this is a relegation fight.
Well, I can tell you now, the game has ended, and now we have our final matchup We have Aston Villa versus Norwich.
Wow. The two lower seeds. How about that? Unbelievable.
So Aston goes on the road, and they'll be able to host Norwich in the game that will be decided very soon on the timing. But looks like the two lower seeds prevail.
Yeah, kind of shocking to see going into hostile territory. But Aston Villa, they have something special about them. They won the championship playoff last season to get into the Premier League in a playoff again, and they're doing their fans proud here. Fantastic job. They're going to go back to Birmingham. They'll be pumped about this one and hosting for the final. Amazing.
Yes, and again, I think you can see here, as we see some in the replay, that it definitely started off where it seemed a little even. Bournemouth did have a 60-40 in their advantage at the end of the first half. Looks like Aston Villa came out firing in the second. Was able to get a little more possession in the second half to get them a little closer to the 50-50. But of course, the Horahan's goal was the ultimate decider in this game.
Yeah, no question about it. And these two teams, good matchup. Felt like it would be a good game, and definitely turned out that way. I feel like probably should have been more goals, but it was really cagey and just a great, well-played game. Hopefully we get that in the final.
Yeah, especially too, I'm expecting that the final there'll probably be a couple more, at least one or two goals. I think at this point, based off both games that we've seen, I do think that Aston Villa is going to be the one who walks off as the champion.
I would have to agree. I think they played better football so far, but Norwich City has a chance to shock people. Of course, in real life, they've beaten Man City, they beat Leicester City this year, so they've got an opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Can they stave off relegation? That'll be really interesting to see.
Yes. All right, folks, that does it for us tonight. We will let you know on our social media channels when we will be broadcasting the final between Aston Villa and Norwich. Hope you enjoyed this game as well. A lot more action-packed than our first game. Ends with a 1-0 end for Aston Villa. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Happy Easter to everyone, and stay safe. We'll get through this together.